Hello, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. Now, I've been a little bit obsessed recently with these early noughties racing covers. They're a bit chaotic, they're super maximalist, and I thought, why don't we create our own poster design inspired by one of these iconic covers? Now, unfortunately, I don't have a souped up race car to use as the subject of my poster design, but I have an idea. Now, obviously, I could use stock photography, but I thought this would be way more fun. Although I did forget I was going to actually have to play the game to unlock the cars and stuff. So, yeah, anyway, here is the custom car that I have created, and it will be the subject of today's poster design. So, let's get into it. So, time to do some actual designing. Although you just got a glimpse of my custom car, we're going to park it for now. And I'm actually starting off in Illustrator, where I have put together a bit of a mood board so you can see my general direction here. One thing you will notice, and that I mentioned earlier, is that these designs were pretty chaotic from a typographic point of view. And although it's something I want to tap into, I do want to add a slightly more contemporary approach to this. So I've kind of set up this super basic grid, mainly just as a border to section off the top, middle, and bottom sections of this page as just a bit of a guide. I'm starting off with my headline lockup, and I've been looking into a load of racing graphics, and something I really liked was the use of this really bold sans serif typeface. I'm sort of pairing that with something a bit more abstract, something a bit more expressive. Compactor is a typeface I've been really feeling at the moment. I think this is going to work nicely, and then I can just copy that to make a new section for the subtext below. For the subtext, I started looking at a few different options. I was initially thinking this marker pen was quite interesting. It's called Saturday Regular, but then I came across this font from Hunter's store, which was a bit more out there, and I think it's going to contrast really well with this clean compactor type style, especially when I start to distort it, which I do plan on doing. So I'm just going to scale it up a little bit and bring it up. And then I want these to overlap. So I'm just going to align this, and then I'm going to add some warp effects. So I kind of want this to arch over the text. I don't think this is right, but something maybe like this actually. This kind of follows a similar shape to a wheel arch, I think, so let's run with that. Color scheme wise, I'm kind of thinking a blue and gray color scheme, so I've swatched a few colors from my mood boards here, which is kind of why I really like them. So I can make the text blue, and then the top text blue, and then the bottom text this gray color. Good start, I like where it's going, but at the moment it all feels a bit flat. I can add in a bit of a shadow on both of these, not like a drop shadow that's like, you know, kind of blurry. I want like a hard shadow, something with some hard edges. The way I usually do this, and I'll do it on the race club first actually, is to duplicate my text and then shift the layer down and to the right, make sure that is sent to the back. Then I'm gonna make a copy again of this top layer. Then what I can do is make these two black and then go to blend and set the specified steps to something like 50, and then I can go back to blend and then go make. This will actually blend those two shape layers together, and then I can just paste my top layer back on top so it's gray. So this is giving me that sort of harder edge shadow, and I can still move my shadow around, which is good. And then this edge is getting lost, I think, a little bit, so maybe we can just add a little bit of a stroke to that, just so it sort of sits away from the text underneath. And to be honest, I can probably do the same to this top text as well, just so they both look layered, but they've both got their own individual shadows. And I can also add a stroke to that one as well. Still thinking this is all looking a bit flat though. I think we can add a little bit more in here. So from our mood boards, a lot of the graphics had these gradients, which I think were really, really nice. So taking from my swatches, I can actually create a bit of a gradient on here and then fade between two of those colors. So have the dark at the bottom and then it's fading up to a slightly lighter color. Nice, I like this. Still a bit floaty though, so it could do with a bit of an offset path. Duplicate my whole design, make sure it's outlined, and then I can just unite this shape into one. Can then move over the top of my design, send it to the back, and then go to offset path and just bring it up a little bit so it comes out and extrudes from those edges. I just think this is going to help, especially when there's multiple elements on different layers. Kind of looks like a sticker as well, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm also actually going to add in a black background because we took it from Need for Speed. All the races in Need for Speed are actually at night. So I thought, why not go for a darker aesthetic, put this on a black background. I like the blue, but I kind of want to check out what it looks like in a few different colors. And although it sounds like a very long process, it's actually very quick to test that out. So I can actually create a few duplicates here. Then I can just select that and then go to the recolor tool and then just drag the swatch around to one of the colors that I like. I do quite like this pinky red actually, but I think I'm going to stay with the blue as it's just my color. Do you know what I mean? Right, what's next? So let's get this into position on our page first. And I feel like we need to add some detailed text up here to fill this space. So let's start adding that in. Let's add in some racing copy along the top. I'm just going to go for a nice clean Helvetica typeface, I think, for this, just because there's going to be quite a bit going on the page. I want this to be a bit more subtle. So let's start looking at some of these bottom type graphics. I want to add in some Japanese type into here. It just kind of nods to some of these original influences. Problem is, don't speak Japanese. So Google Translate is. I was thinking this could be like the drift issue. I don't actually have many Japanese typefaces either, or that are compatible with the Japanese words. So I could actually just use this. Again, pretty clean sans serif typeface. It's called Standard Weight. Looks nice. Again, there's gonna be lots going on, so I think we can get away with some slightly more minimal typefaces down here. Check out this reference image I found, by the way. This is another thing that I was looking at earlier. There's so many layering elements, but somehow really works. So I thought that was really cool. I think we can take some inspiration from that as well. I quite like this gradient effect here. So if I start off with some gray to match the other title, and then I can add an offset path again, which I'm going to add a bit of a gradient to, just so you kind of get a bit of a gleam over the edges, which I'm thinking will look pretty interesting. Let's have a look. And then I'm just going to keep going with the strokes just to add a bit more depth into this. So I can add that black stroke here, which you won't actually see at the moment. Then I can add another blue offset path, again to match the title text, just to give it a bit more consistency. Cool, let's scale this up then. And then I want to add some smaller text here, again in Japanese, just to make this the drift issue. I'm going to use a similar border effect as the other one, by just using the blue gradient from the top title again as well, so it looks a bit different. Let's scale this up. Maybe we don't go full width. Might be too similar to the titles. So I want to add in some additional elements, not necessarily anything that's on my reference images, but I was thinking of adding some sort of tribally flame graphic. I feel like I've seen this a lot in the sort of race car vinyl graphic vibe. So I think maybe we can implement some of that, just add our own little flair onto it. And flames are cool. Okay, but yeah, I feel like they're quite iconic within the racing scene, so let's put that in there. I did manage to find this racing vector pack online, so we can implement a few of these into our design, I think. There are these sort of flames, I was thinking. I move them in, they're a bit long. Maybe we can cut that down. I'll just edit this vector and trim off the edge, make it a little bit lower like so, and then should we try the gradient again? I don't know. I feel like gradient will work nice on a flame. Don't feel like it really stands out. Maybe we can add another border, switch it up a little bit from the other ones, because I feel like I don't want it to all be the same, so maybe a bit of grey on there. Yeah. So we can flip that actually and then put it on the other side so it kind of sits between them two, and then scale this text portion up again to fit the space. So it's giving me flame shirt vibes. Do you know what I mean? Does anyone remember those? Does anyone have a flame shirt? School discos used to be a bit litty if you walked in with one of those on. Anyway, too much empty space going on here, and I feel like on these covers, there's any empty space, illegal. So let's fill that up. I'm gonna layer some more text in this bottom left corner as well, in yet another font, because why not? We're breaking the rules, and I don't feel like any of the references used, a select number of fonts. They just went with it. So I did kind of like that brush sign painter typeface that we used at the beginning, and I feel like that could have been cool. So maybe let's bring that back in and see whether that works. Maybe this can be a little quote, a little inspirational quote, drift somewhere new. Love it. Let's get that in there. This probably is a bit too straight here though, so maybe we can move it or tilt it. Yeah, let's tilt it up a little bit. And then I feel like nothing can be flat now. Let's add some strokes in as well, because it's quite big and it will look weird if we don't have any strokes on it and everything else does. So super basic composition down. Now I'm just gonna drop in my car. It's just a low res cutout, just to get a better idea of the composition, I think. And then we can add in a few more details and sort of go from there, just to sort of get an idea of where our space is, because we don't really know yet. So this is the car. It's gonna need some work, but we can do that in Photoshop after. I was thinking sort of having it in the center here, I think would look quite nice. I don't want it too big though. So I don't know, let's kind of scale it to here. Let's try and fill in some more of these spaces. We can use more of these race graphics I sourced earlier to start dropping them in. Maybe actually some of these number graphics here could just sort of be dropped into position and just swatch actually from that other bit of text, and then let's get it in there. We can just put loads in there and then just pull it back if we need to. Put them in the side. Why not? We're just adding everything in we can. I think that's enough for like big details though. I think we need to add in some like smaller little text details just to nod back to the editorial cover aesthetic as well. I don't know, just some text here and here might be nice. I did have a cool idea for down here actually. I thought we could make a little badge or something. I kind of just started working this up. Cool, so here we are, with and without the car that I positioned. I'm liking the layout. I think this looks pretty sweet, but we need to get this into Photoshop so we can start adding some more effects and textures. But first things first, we need to sort this whip out because I don't really think it kind of fits in at the moment. I think it looks too different from the rest of the design, so we need to work that in. So this was the image of the car that I got earlier, but as you can probably tell, not the highest of resolutions. Game is pretty old now, which makes me feel old. But with using some AI upscaling, we can add some slight improvements so that all of the edges are super sharp and we have our isolated car. So I've dropped in all of our text bits from Illustrator. Most of them are on separate layers as well, just in case I kind of want to tweak the layout and composition as we sort of move the car about, if I need to. But the main problem at the moment is that this car still just doesn't really go with the rest of the design, I don't think. I think the idea in my head was it was going to look nice. And now seeing it down here, it doesn't really look that good. So I feel like we have to edit it slightly just to sort of tone it down a bit. So I was thinking of initially adding in a threshold like this to make this simple kind of graphic. But I feel like when we do that, it kind of loses too much detail. So not really sure what to do there. We could just drop it back a bit, maybe. Just lower the opacity so it's kind of got a bit of a graphic overlay, but not too intense. I don't know. Actually, quite like that. That looks all right. Yeah, less digital. Which I do like the digital, but I also don't want it to be too graphic-y. Do you know what I mean? You see my problem. But here we are. Now I feel like the colors are all too in sync with each other and this stands out again too much. So I feel like we could do a bit of tweaking on the color. So maybe I just get a blue swatch or one of these colors here, and then I can just do that as a solid overlay maybe, and then just use that as a color, set that to color, and see and adjust that slightly. Nice, I think that looks way less intrusive. I feel like it's, you know, it's the centerpiece, but I don't want it to be stand out too much. And then I can just tweak everything in here, make sure it fits. But I think overall, I'm kind of happy with this vibe, you know. Actually, I lied. I decided I hated this car. And after playing the game for much longer than I should have done, I unlocked this one, so we're using that now. Now we can add a few more effects in. I think all of this would kind of benefit from an outer glow, or a bit of a neon vibe going on. You know, from the actual game, again, it's all at night, it's kind of neon vibes. I feel like maybe we should add that in. So let's add that and just maybe play with that a little bit. It doesn't have to be too strong. Very, very subtle. Bit of a hazy glow to it. This, I think, looks pretty cool. Nice. Bit of a blue vibe going on. And then I think I'm going to bump the curves up a little bit because we're going to add some more effects and maybe some grain and stuff to this. So I feel like we're going to lose a bit of the saturation. So let's bump that up in the curves. And then I can make this a smart object now, I think, as I'm really happy with the layout. And then I can start adding some texture on top. So I'll start off with a little bit of noise, not to make it too overpowering, but I think just a little bit actually will be fine. And then I've got this paper texture as well, which can just drop over the top just to give it a bit more of that fly poster aesthetic, you know. So let's set to one of these blending modes. I think soft light looks good. Maybe drop it down on opacity just a slight bit or not. I don't know. Cool. So here is a closer look at my design in a few different close-up detailed angles. And then I decided to mock this up in a few different ways as well. We have our poster mock-up here, and I did try it again in a few different colorways as well, but I still prefer that blue color, I think. But I don't know. What's your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. And then again, I just kept rolling with it, to be honest. And I thought if I adapted this a little bit, it could kind of be like one of those racing graphic t-shirts. So here's that. What do you think? I think this is kind of interesting here. Quite nice. You can imagine this hanging up in a vintage store somewhere. Cool, so if you did enjoy today's video and you did want to learn a little bit more about the poster design process, then I also have a video on my channel on how to create 80s editorial poster designs, which you can click on. It should be floating up here somewhere. But that is it for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, please like, comment, subscribe, you know, all the good stuff. And I'll catch you again soon with a new one. So take care and I'll see you in a bit.